Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, the wrestling boys are back, the Getting Over crew is here. We're talking pay-per-views, people. We're talking pay-per-view winners, who's got the belt, what's coming up in the next pay-per-view. This is an NXT pay-per-view. There are that many pay-per-views at the moment that we're doing that many that this is the first of two, but it's actually the first of three podcasts in the next week. So if wrestling's your thing, strap in, stay tuned, because the Getting Over boys, they've got all the wrestling for you. There's video for this, and the place to get that video is YouTube. And while you're checking us out over there on the YouTube, do give us a little subscribe. It helps us out massively, helps the channel, keeps helping us to grow. And growth is good, so my therapist tells me. So here we go. This is CookieCast Getting Over.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's that time again. Getting Over here on CookieCast. It's been a little while since we got together, so everyone is present and correct. We've got Mr. Cook, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Matthew Moore in his house, as it were.
Realised immediately that for the audio listeners, waving at the screen doesn't really work. So, apologies, you lovely audio listeners, and there's a little treat for you.
So it's going to be, as well, so it's the first time we've got together for a little while, but it's going to be the first of three over the coming couple of weeks, because NXT and WWE are kicking into gear for SummerSlam and Takeover weekend, closely followed by Payback the following weekend. Whoever booked these shows so close together, I mean, I can understand a takeover and a pay-per-view, but my God. Anyway, keeping us busy, keeping us entertained, whilst some of the world, I guess, is still on lockdown. But quite a lot has happened in WWE and NXT since we last spoke. So I suppose, really, we should get straight to the important business. And we all know what that important business is, right? Regular listeners will know. Just reach down here, and it's time. Oh! We've got some duplication. So yeah, it's time for the predictions tile. Although, seeing as this time we're here to talk about NXT, maybe we should have a little bit. Maybe we should have a little bit of a switch around with the old title. So can change it up. Yeah, we go. Seeing as I'm in the newly refurbished man cave, I have the access at the moment. So yeah, I regained the gold last time out for the first time in what feels like forever, just before Extreme Rules, but I guess it's time to find out if my first defence would be a horror show. You're welcome. So, going in, we will talk about the main roster pay-per-view on the next episode of CookieCast, but just to give you the scores so you know where everybody sits. Mr. Cook, unfortunately for you, sir, you got a 5. Even more unfortunately for Mr. Williams, he got a 4. Matt pulled it level on 5. But still, pay-per-view predictions champion with a 6. I've managed to hang on to it, but yeah, it disappears if I move it too much. There we go. So yeah, that's it. So I'm pretty sure is it only Andy so far that's managed to successfully retain it? So that puts us in.
So me and you are now a little pegging. I'd like to announce that this is officially the end of my doing any research for any of these podcasts. We're back, baby. We're flying by the seat of our pants on these ones. Here we go. Can I still pick Stone Cold to come out for the Rumble? Is that an option?
Well, you might want to wait till January at least. At least you'll have half a chance then. But yeah, so yeah, it's I'm quite happy about that. I'm not going to lie, because it's been a while, and then you wait for 1 and 2 come along at once. But yeah, business since the last time we spoke. As NXT is strictly known as developmental, even in a way still at this point. Probably worth noting right off the bat that Evolve, Progress, ICW and some WXW shows have finally, after months and months of rumour, made their way to the network. So for the first time, these three companies, which have been, I suppose the shows that they've picked have been used to highlight WWE talent that are main roster or NXT now. It's a good way of introducing it to, I guess, hardened WWE fans via the network, and to maybe get them to see some of the people on the undercard. We've got some regular matches which we've maybe seen in NXT, because there's Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic on some of the Evolve shows, I know, for a start. But I guess really, is it really now the death of the indies, or how do we see this moving forward? Like, what do people think about the indies going onto the network?
It's funny because obviously Evolve is dead anyway, isn't it? Because they've officially acquired them and they've kind of been absorbed into like, I presume NXT developmental or something like that. I don't know if we'll see another Evolve show. I don't know whether that was due to the kind of global climate as it is. But then the other two are kind of in the sketchy kind of position at the moment. The amount of changes that have gone on in progress in the last 6 months. It's gone from being owned by 3 different people to kind of one now. Who does work for NXT UK. But obviously the people who run it day to day are, I don't know the specific ins and outs, but aren't WWE related. So, for them to make a big show with all the kind of speaking out side of things, to kind of take these people on and promote them within the company and stuff like that, seems strange. And WXW probably aren't shy of some kind of retribution from the kind of speaking out and stuff like that, but they're a kind of different kind of thing. Those two companies still seem to be very much on their own. Obviously, there was influence put on them that if the WWE would have left it a couple of months, they wouldn't have had to influence certain people not being allowed to work with them for other reasons.
Yeah, we're probably best staying away from that side of things, maybe. But yeah, it's. I think for me, I find it like, because all those companies have got their own network, as it were. They've got their own on-demand service, so we're still yet to see if it's a full integration or if it is just going to be the odd show. But I think on the whole, I'm not as worried about it as some people might be, because it is highlighting the up and comers, and it's it'll draw more attention to the people that kind of we're used to seeing. It'll be a milestone for some of them to maybe get on the network and maybe see it as a bit of an achievement. So I'm quite pleased about it. I'm not one of the naysayers with that one. So speaking of things that have joined the network, there is a bit of news that's come out about somebody who might be leaving the network, and that somebody is one Miss Renee Young, reported to be leaving WWE. Do we think that she'll probably make the obvious move to join her husband, obviously Mr. John Moxley, Dean Ambrose as he was in WWE? Do we think that she'll join him in AEW, or do we reckon she's just going to do other stuff?
I don't know with that, because wasn't she getting touted around for sort of TV roles at one point, and TV companies were interested in looking at her to sort of host TV shows and things like that, and so there was more that were trying to get her away from the wrestling side, more just into generic TV work.
Well, before she joined WWE, she used to be like a almost like a Sky Sports News, like the Canadian version of Sky Sports News, kind of news anchor, and that's kind of what brought her in. But then, whilst she might have been a bit pigeonholed in WWE for a while, I think the announcer stuff kind of really brought out more of her personality. Obviously, not forgetting the fact that she's like the first female to be like a full-time commentator on Raw as well. That was quite a big deal.
Yeah.
But I know it's such a shame, I think, because over here we never got like full access to that WWE backstage program that Fox put out with her and like Booker T and CM Punk and stuff. And after watching that through a perfectly legitimate source, that was the way to go. Like that was entertaining. It wasn't just here are some matches, here's a bit of nonsense. It allowed the people that they had on as guests and the people on as presenters to bring out that other side. And I think through that, she ain't gonna struggle for work if she does anything outside. Like, it doesn't have to
everything
be related for me.
Everything I've seen of that, I fully agree. That is absolutely the way that the network and the company should be taking stuff. That behind the scenes feel, it's still there, but it's kind of, you know, like the in the ring is still there, but it's kind of off to the side. It's a bit more of a conversation with the people behind the characters. It really did feel like a great move for them. It was certainly interesting to watch. It was certainly entertaining and stuff like that. But like you say, the fact that we don't actually have access to it here seems like a real misstep.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any kind of anomaly in the deal, because obviously the BT Sport deal, I think BT Sport seemingly tend to deal with a lot of ESPN stuff. So whether it's like a conflict with like Fox and ESPN or something like that might have caused that issue as to why we didn't get it. But for those of you that did manage to track it down whilst it was in its prime, it was good. Definitely worth a watch. So
another thing that she's come out with, hasn't she just released a cookbook as well?
Yeah, that was they touted, didn't they, a big announcement for a few days, and it was like, oh god, is she going to announce that she's pregnant? Is she going to announce then that she was leaving?
Yeah.
No, it was a cookbook. And I've seen a few pictures actually in the last couple of days where, have you seen it, where Moxley's been like a hand model for some of the pictures of the food that they've done for the cookbook that's going to be actually in print? Can you even imagine? It'd be like every other picture will be him just like giving it like that in the and again one for the audios. It'd be like, right, we're going to take the picture and now. Yeah, I can't imagine that was a stress-free day whatsoever. So we've got this weekend. Let's say we've got a double header, and this time we're here to talk about NXT Takeover. I know that we don't always go through Takeover in great detail, so I've got a bit of backfilling for the story for you all of what's been going on since the last time we spoke about NXT. So Keith Lee had just taken the NXT title last time we spoke about this from Adam Cole back at the Great American Bash on the 8th of July. Since then, Lee defended both the North American and NXT title the following week against Dominik Dijakovic, before deciding that they needed to create some more opportunity within NXT, and they had him. Well, he relinquished the North American title. A series of qualifying matches was then announced by William Regal, so it was set up to be a series of triple threat matches, and the winners would go through to a ladder match at Takeover 30. The idea, I think, when they first kicked off was that it was going to be 5 people in the ladder match, probably 5 winners of 5 triple threats, nice and simple. We had Bronson Reed qualify and Dexter Lumis qualify for the ladder match. But then only to find out that Dexter Lumis actually injured his Achilles during the victory over Finn Balor and Timothy Thatcher, and he had to actually be removed from that lineup. That obviously then threw a bit of a spanner in the works, because they had a winner of the match that then couldn't compete. So I was like, what's going on now? Whilst they were sorting it out, Cameron Grimes, Trevor Lee as was, added his name to the list of participants for the ladder match, and it was then kind of like left to wonder who would take the final spots. Would Lumis actually be okay? Was it a storyline injury? Well, it turns out it wasn't, and the wrestlers that were not pinned or submitted in their respective triple threat matches were going to be given a second chance to qualify. So they managed to tie it up quite nicely, but it left Finn Balor to fight Velveteen Dream, returning after a long period out. Hasn't been seen since. Go on, Matt. What do you say?
Obviously, hasn't been seen since. Was it the street fight with Adam Cole? But obviously, apparently he'd been in a car crash, so he'd been recovering from a car crash. I don't know what he was doing while he was crashing his car.
Well, looking at some suspect text messages from what I've seen, but we'll not get into that. But also, I know certainly one member of the Getting Over group was very happy that these triple threat matches not only brought about the debut, but also closely followed by the second full NXT match of one Mr. Ridge Holland. Lost, but not pinned or submitted, so got a second chance to qualify for the ladder match against NXT favourite Johnny Gargano. For those of you that don't know, Ridge Holland is a former rugby league player. He used to play for Hull KR under his real name of Luke Menzies. Fans of the podcast may remember that we've talked about this guy a little bit because we got to see him back at NXT UK in York back in January when like live crowds were still a real thing. But yeah, Matt, do you want to talk about your mate Ridge, or are you still too mad?
Well, this is where you think you take things back, don't you? Because obviously, I sent a message to you guys last week and went, "Well, it looks like he's improved." And obviously, I was taken in, like every other mug that's taken in by him, by the editing of NXT. You know, we talked about it when he nearly killed Tyson T-Bone at York by Alabama slamming him onto his head. And then this week I don't know what the fuck that was, but we dropped Johnny Gargano onto his head. And what gets me is that, like, it's kind of one of the things where you just like, you need to stay off Twitter. Because these people are like, oh yeah, well that looked like Gargano's fault. I'm like, so a guy that's been wrestling for 20 years, has standout matches, one of the safest wrestlers in the company, definitely his fault. Definitely his fault. And you just think, it was dangerous. And I know he's got to get reps and stuff like that, but it's this kind of like, we talk about it between us about Vince's liking, obsession, whatever kind of thing of sportsmen who aren't wrestlers, and I just think it's kind of, it's getting to this point where we're pushing people through who don't know the basics, and it's not like it's not even like 10 years ago, or certainly not 20 years ago, but it's not 10 years ago. The stuff that they're trying to do now, who the kind of lifer wrestlers, the stuff that they're trying to do now, that they've practiced over and over again. Because if you watch if you look at things on Instagram, if you look at things on Twitter, they'll show themselves practicing these things. And then, I don't know, you sound like a complete hater. I sound like a complete hater, and I know that's kind of, but it's this kind of, right, we've got this person, we think that he's got a good look, and yeah, he probably does have a good look apart from the flashes Mac and his little stick and his daft flat cap that's obviously fought his way out of Yorkshire, kind of, instead of going to prison, and it's just the whole shit gimmick that comes with it, and I just think at some point he's going to end up really hurting somebody, and it was gross, the fact that they showed it as well. I think that was the thing that bothered me. Say what you want, like I've said about it, we're all, we can all get conned by editing. Nobody saw the first attempt at the Alabama Slam in York, because dear God, you can't show that anywhere. But they showed this because of, I don't know why.
I presume because it had been sort of billed, I guess, as live on the USA Network, wouldn't it? I suppose. And
yeah,
they went with it, but Jesus Christ, that was high. It was almost like, I don't know where the miscommunication was, because it was like set up for a power slam, but then it was almost as if he then decided he was going to do a brainbuster halfway through.
But also, like, Gargano's arm went definitely a way that it shouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
it was just, and then you hear stuff of, they had to stop the match for minutes to check that he was all right. There was kind of possibility of it being cancelled. I mean, but how they're going to kind of run that one? And then Gargano going around and apologising to people, apparently going up to Ridge Holland and saying, "Oh, don't worry about it." I'm like, no, he nearly fucking killed you. And it's not, paralyzed. He would have been paralysed from the neck down if it would. And I mean, I don't know how he isn't. Would be the kind of thing.
Well, I suppose in that, like, Gargano will come off the bigger man anyway, won't he? So
yeah,
despite the fact he's definitely not physically. But then, at least, from one person being dropped on their head to another, because obviously you would have been doing backflips at the end of the match when Gargano still gutted it out and beat Ridge Holland. So no more Ridge Holland at Takeover. There's no worry about that now, because if he couldn't manage a one-on-one match, there was no way in hell he was going to manage a ladder match. Let's be fair.
Actually, you don't want to think about it.
That is a terrifying thought, letting that guy loose in a ring with weapons. Jesus Christ.
Well, I think that was was that not the comment on our little group earlier in the week about he is a weapon? But well, very different reason. So, making up then the field of five was Velveteen Dream getting the victory over Finn Balor in the final qualifying match for the series. Although, again, it was a little bit shenanigans, wasn't it? Because everybody came out as well after that, posing with the yeah. So I was a bit unsure about what they were going to do with Balor, because he's still a big name, but it turns out that they decided what they were going to do with him today, and we'll get to that shortly. So, basically what's happened is Finn Balor and Timothy Thatcher were in the same triple threat match, and I think they suddenly dawned on them, we've got these two guys who are absolutely mint, doing nothing this weekend. Why not let them have a singles match? So, again, a guy who we've seen a fair bit of, and indie fans will have seen a bit of, Timothy Thatcher, had obviously a bit of a run in NXT so far, being the guy who packed Matt Riddle off to the main roster in that fight pit, and has been just basically playing the hardest fuck character ever since. He's back to take on Balor this weekend. Not obviously any build other than the fact that they were in this triple threat match together, but
it was obviously he was part of, like, in the match with Velveteen Dream. He came out, didn't he? And after Balor had jumped and kind of done his like swan diving thing over the top rope, then Thatcher came and attacked him from behind, then chucked him in the ring. Mm-hmm. So I don't know whether they're going to kind of build it from that kind of the triple threat, and then this tiny little kind of part of the match last night to kind of build this match that's going to be brutal. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, the finish to that triple threat was basically Thatcher passing out, wasn't it? Because he had Balor in like a knee bar, and then Loomis kind of put a sleeper on him whilst it was happening. So everybody was sort of connected and couldn't really do anything about it other than that. So I guess, like, Balor never tapped out, but then suddenly Balor didn't beat him either. So I suppose that's probably where they're going. But yeah. So we talked about the fact that Keith Lee picked up the NXT title, but what's Adam Cole basically been doing for the last month and a bit? Well, arguing with a former NFL punter, Pat McAfee, would be the answer to that question. It's McAfee's been around WWE for a while, turning up randomly in his shorts whenever he feels like it seems. And he's had to say, with this connection, that they set something up. So Adam Cole basically appeared on Pat McAfee's podcast, and it ended abruptly after Cole walked off set after what felt like a bit of a tantrum. But McAfee basically spent 5 minutes throwing jabs at him until he flipped out, and it was okay. It was a bit like, you knew it was kind of, if they hadn't pushed it so much, you might have believed it, but then it kind of went a little bit long, so you kind of felt like it was more of a setup. But anyway, they set it up so that appeared to have made up on NXT last week, but then Pat McAfee joined the commentary team for the main event, which was the NXT tag title match between Undisputed Era trying to get the titles back from Imperium. So you kind of knew something was up. As McAfee went on, he basically got louder and more outspoken. More outspoken than usual for people that have actually seen him, insulting Cole so that he could hear him at ringside, and just it ended up causing enough of a distraction basically for Imperium to retain the title. Adam Cole then got a bit mad about it, was restrained, and McAfee basically punted him in the head whilst he was being held back. I suppose that's playing to McAfee's strength, given he was a punter for. Was it the Colts? Was his team? Was that what I was reading?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are way ahead of me on the old NFL stuff. So was he actually any good as an NFL player, or is that why he's a podcast host now?
Yeah, because a punter's like the level below kicker. Generally, you have a kicker that can do both, kick and punt. But so he must have been. They switch. They're a switchable role. It's basically kicking out your hands like a goalkeeper. It's I don't know anything about his career. Like, obviously, all I'd ever seen was he used to be on the pre-show for quite a lot of a lot of the takeovers, or just a lot of the pay-per-views anyway.
Just generally, I remember, was it WrestleMania a couple of years ago, I think, and he turned up and he had like a Hawaiian shirt and a pair of white jorts on.
No,
like everybody else, yes, it is sweltering because it was outdoors, but everybody else is there in like a full suit. Yeah, this clown been there a minute and turns up in a Hawaiian shirt and white shorts because that's his thing.
I never understood it because obviously they had the guy that looked like Art Garfunkel as well with him as well. They just a pair of them terrible.
Sam Robert.
Yeah, but McAfee's. I suppose this is obviously his shtick, isn't it? Because obviously he got married in shorts. I mean, I don't know. It's obviously his gimmick, but yeah.
Well, after all this had happened, Triple H actually made a challenge on behalf of Adam Cole, which was then accepted by McAfee. So this weekend we have an absolute veteran. God knows how many years Adam Cole's been doing this, but somebody who's at the absolute top of his game versus a guy who has literally never done this before on TV. He does seem to have an interest in it, so how much training he might have got in or whatever remains to be seen. But it could be brilliant. It could be an absolute, we could be expecting it to be terrible, and it could end up being pretty good. Or it could just be terrible, but I guess we'll wait till this weekend to find out.
My question is always going to be the same in these scenarios. Is this what people are tuning in for? Is this what people are turning the TV on, going, oh, I can't wait for that match?
Do we think that it's any coincidence that it just happens to be an NFL player joining the ranks a couple of weeks before NFL comes back onto TV?
100% no. It's 100%. It's so lined up. It's not. Yeah. Like we said, we just discussed it about Ridge Holland. This is a worse example of it. And the problem is, unfortunately, that they probably will boost their viewership up because some idiot in Indianapolis will go, Pat McAfee's playing, watch it, and I'll watch it, and you think, well, that's all they're going to watch. They're not going to, and they're not going to sign up. Are they going to hoping that someone signs up to the WWE network and doesn't cancel it after a month or what? I think it's. I mean, unless we're in for a big surprise and he's been putting in work, then
he's been around the company, hasn't he, for a while? So I would expect him to be at least he'll at least have been doing some kind of drills. I would hope.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we mentioned that he'd stuck his nose in during the tag title match. Well, we've also had a last minute addition this weekend that on the pre-show there's going to be a number one contenders match for the tag titles. So we're going to get Tyler Breeze and Fandango versus Danny Birch and Oni Loken versus Legado del Fantasma. Again, that's quite a new team, but they have basically come off the back of the Cruiserweight tournament that they'd held. But we've got the former DJZ, Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza in that side, who, to me, they've been quite an interesting part of NXT for the last few weeks. I've quite enjoyed their little sort of partnership with Santos Escobar, despite the fact I've still got reservations about that being, well, we need a Mexican bad guy, what can we call him? Got it. So I've seen online today a guy who claimed to be from that region of the world complaining that they've just picked a guy with two surnames or two first names, whatever, which it's the Mexican equivalent of Neville, everybody. So that's. I originally thought that they were going to fight Imperium straight away on Takeover, but it turns out it's actually going to be a later date. So I would have thought that will come up on the weekly programming at some point in the near future. Women's division has probably been a little bit more straightforward of late. Io Shirai defended against Tegan Knox, looking for a next opponent. Dakota Kai attacks Io Shirai while she's on her way to the back. As well as the post-match attack, she then had to beat Rhea Ripley in a number one contenders match, which she did, which was probably a bit of an upset, because for those of you that have seen Rhea Ripley, she is an absolute beast, especially compared to Dakota Kai. So yeah, that's happening this weekend as well. So Dakota Kai versus Io Shirai. We've got one more match happening, which we talked about Keith Lee at the beginning. So to complete the circle, who's Keith Lee defending against this weekend? That would be relative newcomer, Karrion Kross. I know we have mentioned him briefly on the podcast before, mainly based around his entrance, but have you guys seen anything of Karrion Kross in the last few weeks?
Yeah.
So they've gone a bit of a they've gone a bit of a different approach with him, because I mean Keith Lee could quite easily be the big guy monster kind of character, but they've almost like left that to Karrion Kross now. So he's got the entrance, there's all the theatrics, but if you have sort of skipped NXT of late, I'd definitely make a point to see him in action. Basically, Keith Lee made a direct challenge, and Karrion Kross kind of played the heel that backed away from it, but then complained about the fact that he'd not got this title match. He then proceeded to take out numerous people in backstage segments, kind of making his point. But then a match has now been arranged, and there was a contract signing on last week's NXT. So we all know how contract signings go in wrestling, right?
Every single one of them goes off without a hitch.
Well, does it though? This one was a little different though, because within the first sort of 2 minutes after the promo bit finished, both wrestlers had signed the contract, which was then brought back to the ring by Scarlett, which is Karrion Kross's valet. Keith Lee picked it up and opened it to just give it the once over, and as he opened it, a fireball came out of it. That was pretty cool. It was like a nice bit of theatrics and stuff, but obviously it just adds to everything this weekend. So it was pretty well done. Did enjoy the whole fireball bit. Did you see that, Matt, as well?
What's that?
The Karrion Kross fireball incident from last week.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. The child had Ridge Holland himself out of bed, so I had to go and check he was alright. He just climbed back in like a little legend and gone back to sleep.
Good lad.
Yeah, the whole build to the Keith Lee Karrion Kross thing's been good. You know, I wondered where they were going to go, because obviously it was a big deal with the, like, obviously unifying, you know, obviously winning both belts, and then obviously giving one up within like 2 weeks, which I was a bit like, well, that seemed completely pointless, but never mind. And then obviously the whole build with this, and yeah, the kind of fireball thing was quite cleverly done. It's been a really good kind of build, because you kind of think, right, how are these two kind of similar sized kind of performers gonna it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to that match as well, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. It'd be interesting to see what they do though, because they've got a bit of a problem on their hands in one respect, as Paul would probably say, they've booked themselves into a corner, because they've got Lee, who's just taken the title, not had too many defences of it, but then they've also got this guy who's been billed as the unstoppable monster. So I think
don't worry about it too much, Stu. We can discuss this when we come to making our predictions. It's fine.
Well, speaking of which, then, shall we get into those? We've touched on what's happened since. We've got the match listings in front of us. Now that we've been through a bit of the backstory, we can get through some of these predictions. So, the match that has been added most recently, I have got on the list first. So, Finn Balor versus Timothy Thatcher. Who wants to take the first prediction?
Finn Balor.
Okay. He is down for you. Any particular reason?
I just think, I don't know, it still feels fairly, he still feels to me like a fairly new addition to all of this, even though it's probably been, one of those things that probably feels like less time than it's actually been. So I just think a win at this point in time is probably going to keep that rolling. And I like Finn Balor, so that's how I'm picking stuff now. I'm picking wrestlers like I pick racehorses. I like their name. Screw the research.
Matt, do you want to take the next one?
I'm really struggling with this one, because we've talked about it. They're booking. If Balor keeps on losing or kind of missing out on things, he's going to be kind of booked into worthlessness. He's meant to come back and give them the big push, and then it's not really. If you're going to bring him back to give NXT the big push to take it over AEW, then he needs a title, and he's not got either title, or not got even close to them. But then they've built Thatcher up as this kind of school of hard knocks, batter everybody, technical wrestler kind of thing. Part of me wants to think it's like going to go to some kind of no contest thing.
You're absolutely going to steal my thunder if you go with that. Because you don't want either of them coming out of this match looking bad and taking a loss. And I think either of them taking a loss will make them look bad. I know it's meant to be quick because we've talked about it already. I'm going to go with Balor. I'm going to go with Balor as well. Okay. Balor. Well, I've obviously gone in with mine. I'm going for a no contest purely for the reasons that you talked about. Not something that I normally do, but it makes the most sense to me. So I don't see happen. I don't see how they get there unless because obviously I'd say if they were both mega technical wrestlers, then that's the reason why I can't pull myself out of it. But if I was going to be picking one, I'm still going with a no contest, but if I was going to be picking one, I'd go for Thatcher, purely because I feel like they're turning Finn Balor into like Tommaso Ciampa. He's like becoming like the gatekeeper for the newbies. So, but yeah, Paul, who are you picking?
I don't know. This is a strange one because something just sort of come to me that obviously since he's been back down there, he's not really done much like Andy said and stuff like that. Does it mean that they're sort of building into towards doing something like that we've never seen him do before with any of the characters like that? So could it be that we start to see him lose fairly regularly, and that the fact that he loses all of his matches then has some sort of like spark that starts like a change in character or something like that. So it could be that maybe it keeps on losing, and it could see the re-emergence of the demon, but like on a permanent basis. It's like a permanent character switch.
I think depending on what they do with like the Undisputed Era, I think there's ever the potential, because his character now is very similar to his character in New Japan just before he started Bullet Club. Now obviously they can't start Bullet Club, and the Balor Club thing was weird. It didn't really ever become of anything, was it? But
it's all in a few t-shirts.
Yeah, I have a couple. But maybe they'll go along that kind of line of things. Obviously not Bullet Club because you can't, and not Balor Club because that's already been done. But some kind of like new faction if UE go somewhere else.
Cool. So, Paul, I'm guessing by your reasoning, are you picking Thatcher?
Yeah, I'll go for a Thatcher win to start off this.
Playing for points. Playing for points. So, next on the list, I've got the NXT Women's Title match. Champion Io Shirai versus Dakota Kai. I'm going to dive straight in and say there is absolutely no way that Io Shirai loses this match. Sorry to put your Bailey line, Paul, but it's one thing that we didn't mention before was that Dakota Kai has a bit of an enforcer with her, who had been off TV for the last month or so. In Raquel Gonzalez, she is super tall and very strong, and is basically the exact opposite of Dakota Kai. For everything that Kai makes up for in speed and technical ability, she is just like powerhouse, complete powerhouse.
She's almost, and you don't want to kind of make the comparison because people go, it's a bit like Diesel. It's that kind of like Kevin Nash kind of, and it's not a negative comparison. It is that kind of like just massive, nobody's as big as her kind of thing.
I would also say on that note that she's been back on TV a week, so her quads have lasted longer than Kevin Nash's as well. So. But yeah, so she came back into the equation on the most recent episode of NXT, so they've thrown a bit of doubt in there, but I still don't see Io Shirai losing the title. Andy?
Io Shirai for me.
So for me.
Oh, is that all round? Is Paul making up that?
Yes, please.
So, Queen Sweet for Io Shirai. Absolutely.
It'll be good. It'll be an interesting match, but yeah, it's not going to be. I wouldn't have thought anyway.
I feel a bit sorry for Dakota Kai because I think she's almost like the forgotten one in the whole Team Kick thing that was going on with Knox, because Tegan Knox came out of all that quite well, but I'm glad to see she's getting a go. So
it's always the problem when you feel shit.
The other thing that could be potential is obviously like, it's a big milestone. Like, obviously, it's the 30th Takeover.
Yeah.
So every now and again, they like to sort of do like a company reset sort of thing where they just switch all the titles, and it's a case of it's like a clean slate job. So that's the only thing that would maybe make me think that they might do something like that, where they just do a complete switch of all the titles, and it's everyone loses them on the night. So that.
Well, the next match I've got on the list is also the title match, but it's the North American title match. So this is the ladder match for the vacant title that we talked about. So in the respect of what you just said, Paul, I suppose at least there is going to be a new champion. But then, based on that, are you expecting a bit of an upset? Do you think it'll be a new name, or do you think it'll be one of the more established people in that match? So, just as a reminder, we've got Bronson Reed, Damian Priest, Cameron Grimes, Johnny Gargano, and the Velveteen Dream all competing for the title.
So, on that one, granted, I've not watched an awful lot of the stuff. I've just seen clips here and there, but it seemed that after his match with, was it Priest versus Balor at the last Takeover?
Yeah, because wasn't that, didn't we have Balor winning that as well, I think?
Didn't so? Yeah. Since then, he's obviously had this sort of new sort of direction and stuff. He's had like the suppose you class it as a face turn and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think they see him as like a big player for the sort of the next coming months and stuff. So I wouldn't be. He'd be my pick to get the belt onto first.
So we're going Damien Priest for Paul. Andy?
Johnny Gargano.
Will he be only the second ever two-time North American title holder?
Is it second or first? Sure. Oh, has Aaron Cole had it twice?
I'm sure somebody's had it twice. Not Dream.
Him or Velveteen Dream can be the either first time.
Yeah, that's maybe where I'm getting confused with that. Well, I've got Johnny Gargano down for Andy. Matt?
I'm going to go just a bit out of left field. I really hope that it happens, because I think he's like one of them shitty heels and could hold on to it for a while. I'm hoping that it's Cameron Grimes. I nearly said Trevor Lee there, but yeah, Cameron Grimes. I love it. I mean, even in the match, like the Balor match, Velveteen Dream Balor match, the thing, he came down like halfway through the match, just sat on the ladder heckling them. I just thought, yeah, great, I'm in. I just find like that kind of shitty heel that's just like trolling people and stuff like that. I just think it would be, even if it's only a brief title reign, I just think it would be a really interesting one.
I agree with that. I'm actually picking it. If you'd have said to me like 3 weeks ago that or in fact on the night that Damien Priest qualified, I'd have said, yeah, absolutely. I don't know what's going on, but in the last couple of weeks especially, like Cameron Grimes just seems to have got, like he's worked his way up the rankings rapidly. Like he's been featured. He's developing this whole to the moon catchphrase as well. It seems to have been picked up on a few outlets as well. So
you can just see him doing like that shitty kind of hide under the ring for like 10-15 minutes, and everyone's like, "Where the hell's he been?" And then all of a sudden he pops out, and he's got the belt and stuff like that. I mean, it's probably pie in the sky, and they'll stick it on Damien Priest, but
I just have a horrible feeling for Damien Priest that he's gonna then. I think he'll probably end up in the main title picture soon. But I just feel like he'll end up being the big guy that gets fed to the bigger guy.
Yeah.
And it'd be a shame if it happens, but at least to me, I think Grimes winning it would still be a bit of a surprise, but also then instantly build a new name. But I mean, the biggest surprise, if Bronson Reed wins that match, as the biggest guy in that match as well, but yet relatively unknown to a lot of the wider audience, that would be a surprise. So for me, it was between them two purely for that shock factor. But in the last couple of weeks, the performances with Cameron Grimes, I'm going with that. So I'm happy with that one. So we've only got 2 matches left on the card to talk about for this one. So let's go with the title match last, as it always should be. So this leaves us with Adam Cole versus Pat McAfee. Who wants to take this one?
Adam Cole.
Go on, Matt.
I'm really worried. I'm really worried that it's going to be Pat McAfee, because in the same kind of sentences like we talked about Balor kind of going through this, then if Cole loses to McAfee by any way, and that's, I mean, whether they try and build something else from that, I don't know, but I'm going to say Pat McAfee by some kind of weird kind of thing.
What would be good is if it has been the case that he's been, picking stuff up and training all this time, and gets in the ring and actually turns out to be like, surprise, I'm a full-blown wrestler, and that'd be interesting. But unless they're wanting him full-time in there.
All that I'm saying is Triple H has been heavily involved in this, and I know he runs NXT, but he doesn't normally get heavily involved in things.
Well, and let's be fair to Cole as well. McAfee only needs to be half decent, and Cole will carry the rest.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even 25-75, Cole can do 3/4 of the work to make it look really good.
The one thing that I will say is that about McAfee is that his promo on last week's NXT was pretty good. Enjoyed that. He rocked up. Who were them other guys he was with as well? He was with some other former NFL players that obviously were dead famous because I've not heard of any of them.
AJ Hawk, I seem to remember. Was he in the Packers? I think AJ Hawk he was there with what's his name, Matthews, who's at he was at Packers and now is at Clay. Yeah, I seem to remember AJ Hawk being a linebacker, and the other guy who was one of his Colts teammates. I don't know him, and then the third guy was just some rando who was like his security or something.
Well, I really because they almost kind of teased, didn't they? Like a 4-on-4. It's bad enough having like one NFL guy against one wrestler. Please don't just do 4-on-4 against Undisputed Era, because it just fills me with dread. Unfortunately, I kind of agree with Matt. I physically can't bring myself to put Pat McAfee as my prediction, so I'm picking Adam Cole. Which leaves us with Paul to round that one out.
So I just had an interesting thought. When they signed Gronk, do you reckon they had like anything sort of in mind where they were going to basically put together a stable of ex-NFL players?
I thought you were going to say, did they get a group deal? Did they get like a discount on other NFL players?
That'd have been good.
It's like, nobody remembers you. You never won a Super Bowl. How much for that one?
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if it was ever like sort of part of the thinking where like they would sort of McAfee would end up winning it if the idea was to have this match like however long like back down the line and stuff like that, where they'd use Gronk in that sort of way. But to touch on what Matt said a couple of minutes ago, Triple H has had like involvement in this, and he's been sort of front and centre with it. He's always been in the thread all the way through. So is this going to be like his sort of last thing that he does with the company in ring, in that he costs Cole the match, and then him and Cole have something
build to WrestleMania
towards next WrestleMania? Yeah,
that'd be good. I'd be alright with that.
And I think it's that sort of thing where you could argue that he's been NXT's most consistent performer since he joined. Obviously,
the other night it popped up when McIntyre won the NXT title, and then obviously when the Undisputed Era came in. Oh, it's so good! Like the crowd just went nuts. No, there you go.
Had to be. That's the reason I can't pick him to lose.
Would it be an argument that so McAfee wins because Triple H cost Adam Cole the match? Then this is that sort of thing where if it was the case, it was happening in a regular case in the regular world, they'd do that angle, and then the next night at SummerSlam, Triple H would come out to do something in relation to the rest of the show, and Adam Cole would just come out of the crowd and attack him from behind or something. But obviously, they're probably not going to do that because because they don't want to lose the potential pop that they get. And I mean, that's like Adam Cole, instantaneous babyface thing changing it. So I'll still go for it. So I'll still go for that Pat McAfee wins the match because of interference on Triple H's part, and it builds to a storyline there. Like it probably won't have like something like the control of NXT on the line or something along those lines, but I think it'll be something in that sort of guise.
What about a retirement match?
Well, I think that's what I was going to get at. I think it'll be Triple H's last in-ring performance when they get to that match, because he's the wrong side of 50 now. He's like 50, 51.
It'll be one of them as well. If they still keep it as Cole being like the longest reigning NXT champion by that point as well, like it'll then be they'll be able to use that in the build for it. That essentially it's like the most successful like roster member from his kind of like project, I guess, if you like, ends up being the one his most successful creation, if you like.
So he has to sort of, unfortunately, to sort of preserve what he loves, he has to kill his greatest creation or whatever. And so being Cole as the
I mean, it's not like Triple H has got form for like costing people titles, and like, you know, Kevin Owens benefits from it, or Randy Orton benefits from it. You know, so he has got previous for it as well.
Yeah, but as we just said, we'd all love to see that sort of play out to that. So, and obviously, as we discussed it on here, and it was basically sort of our idea, it'll never happen.
He's the closest thing to Shawn Michaels that they've got as well, isn't he?
Oh, big time, absolutely, God, yeah.
I mean, the best part of his promo this week with McAfee was that he didn't say anything until, alright, on Sunday I'm going to make you my bitch, and that was it. You know, and it was just like, right, yeah, you know, that was all. Normally you'd be giving the big kind of thing, and it was, you know, it's been for all my reservations about the actual match and where the storyline's going, the build-up's been really good.
I can't let this prediction and part of the pod pass though without telling you my little story about catching up on NXT this week. So my boys have taken a shine to Adam Cole, which I don't know where they've picked that up from, because obviously Dad's definitely not been an influence whatsoever. But we are at that point, as you've all seen, where if you're in a different room in the house and shout Adam Cole, they will shout baby back to you, which is good fun anyway. Drive Sarah crackers with it. So that promo that you've just mentioned, they happened to watch the second hour of NXT with me this morning, and they saw that promo, which obviously wasn't necessarily a word that I'd like a 4-year-old, or even a pair of them, to hear. To which Seth then goes, Daddy, Adam Cole says he's going to make that man his bit. I was like, well, yeah, maybe we need to stop watching NXT so early in the morning. So definitely not PG programming anymore. But it was quite, like, it's one of them ones where you want to be mad, but it was a really, really funny. It was like I was trying not to laugh when I was telling them that. So brings us on to the last match on the card then. So NXT title up for grabs, Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross. We did mention before about what they're going to do with it. I don't like to do it. I've already done it once on the predictions, but I'm picking no contest. You going for the same, aren't you?
Well, technically no. Technically, I'm going for a Karrion Kross win, but
right.
In the method that he won't win the title, because it seems too quick. If they switch the title now, they'll just absolutely kill any momentum that Keith Lee's got. So I think he'll lose the match, but he'll either get carried out or he'll get himself disqualified, because Karrion Kross will do something that makes him snap, and he'll just hit him with something, or either that, or he'll just pick Scarlett up and throw her at him or something, and that'll cause a disqualification or something.
I suppose the fact that he tried to Karrion Kross tried to set Keith Lee on fire might be the instant snap, and he might just get DQ'd from the off, maybe. But I suppose. Yeah, I suppose
that's the only reason why I don't think there'll be a no contest in the Balor Thatcher match, because having two in the same evening does seem a bit like overkill.
I think it'll definitely happen in one of them, and in terms of playing for points, that's why I'm sticking with both of the predictions. Should get one of the two, hopefully. But yeah, Andy,
Keith Lee for me.
Keith. He's locked in. So the last prediction of the podcast falls to you, Mr. Moore.
I'm going to go with Karrion Kross.
To actually take the title as well.
And new.
Wow.
Ooh. I just think the build's been so big. And I just think ultimately, there's got to be some kind of payoff with it. And I think Keith Lee's obviously just got the title, but he had the US North American title for such a long time, and obviously he's kind of done this as to be the kind of greater person and all that, kind of give people opportunities, and I think there's that kind of element of Karrion Kross being the kind of antithesis of that. And I think Keith Lee without the title trying to chase it to get it back is probably a more likely, a more kind of not completely more interesting story than Karrion Kross just being like, shit, lost it kind of thing. I just think that buries that character that they spent a lot of time building, and I just don't think it's it's got a lot of dimensions, shall we say, that they'll want to keep going for a while. Lots of creepy people to go and hug women at meet and greets.
Speaking of which, I guess if anybody's feeling flush and they've got a spare $125, you can have a 2-minute phone call with one of them this weekend. Yeah. Absolutely mental, that.
You can give weird hugs to your TV screen or something.
Absolutely insane money. So Karrion Kross rounds out the predictions then. Takeover comes. I think it looks like it's going to be probably the last one at the Performance Centre for a while before they move. But we will get to that in a later episode. But yeah, it comes on Saturday night. So enjoy the pay-per-view. Send us your predictions as always. See if you can beat us, and who knows, if you send us some predictions in, we might even have you on predicting with us at some point. Alright. Anything else, gents, from the world of NXT?
Nothing from me.
Excellent. Right then. Well, thanks very much for watching, listening, and all the usuals that Mr. Cook will now lead you into with the subscribing and all that business. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone.
Yeah, do subscribe.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. So there you go. What do you think of that? Another one done. More to come. So do check out the next one, and the one after that. But yeah, Get Over Boys, bringing you the wrestling info that you need in your wrestling lifestyle. Cool. YouTube watchers, do us a favour and subscribe. It means a lot to us. And we'll show you that love in the form of more wonderful podcasts. Everybody jump over to thecookiecast.com, check us out over there. You can find our social media links, email links, things like that. Send us some love. We love love. Love, 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 love. So there we go. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.